Our podcast reviews well-known movies and contains spoilers. The podcast may contain mature subject matter and mature language. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
Quiet on set. Places, everybody. And action.
Welcome everyone to the Hooked on Movies podcast. Today, we will be looking at the 1985 comedy from Albert Brooks, Lost in America. With me are Ken.
I've seen the future, and it's a bald-headed man from New York.
And Ted.
Shut up, Ken. Your song stunk, I hate your suit, and I could hurt you.
But I got great personality.
That's true. And I'm Eric. You're a nice guy. You make me laugh. But our policy is we can't give your money back. And of course, we are talking about Lost in America. So all those quotes will make sense when we start to discuss this movie. Ted, give us the details.
Okay, Lost in America is directed by Albert Brooks. It was a screenplay by Albert Brooks and Monica Johnson. It has a running time of 91 minutes. It has a release date of March 15th, 1985. It had a budget of $4 million and a box office gross of $10.2 million. Lost in America stars Albert Brooks as David Howard, Julie Hagerty as Linda Howard, Maggie Roswell as Patty, Michael Green as Paul Dunn, and Gary Marshall as the casino manager.
A lot of one-offs on this one. You got a core cast, and then you got unnamed people that are just there, which is really cool.
Right.
What did the critics think of this one?
Well, on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score is a certified fresh 95%. It has an audience score approval of 77%. I was able to find one negative review. Stanley Kaufman of the New Republic said, Lost in America isn't as pungent as it might be. The dialogue has flaccid patches. The story just goes on for a while, then knocks off rather than concludes. But two elements give it some charm. First, its ease. Second, the ironies. Lost in America strikes a small, if not quite sharp enough blow at the sentimentalities about the superiority of country over city, moral and otherwise. The superiority of substance over comfort.
Okay.
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
On the positive side, Kirk Ellis of The Hollywood Reporter said, too often things are simply too painfully accurate to be particularly funny. Still, it's hard to fault Brooks's resolutely adult intelligence, and Lost in America, almost in spite of itself, really, is easily his most consistently amusing work to date. And Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times said, Lost in America is being called a yuppie comedy, but it's really about the much more universal subjects of greed, hedonism, and panic. What makes it so funny is how much we can identify with it.
True, so true. All right, do you gentlemen remember the first time you saw this movie? Ted?
This is a movie that I saw probably the early 2000s because somebody that I was working with and I was friends with, this is one of their favorite movies. We watched it together back then.
Oh, that's... I really thought this is the first time you saw it.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
No, I had seen it before. It's always nice to see a movie, too, with someone who's really into a movie, especially if it's a comedy. And then, of course, we had our little things back and forth while we worked together. So,
Ken? Cable?
In and out. I don't know if I ever saw it straight through in one sitting, but I had actually pretty much seen the whole movie. But the problem was I saw it in, I want to say, mid to late 80s when I was probably about 15, 16 years old. And so I don't think I could relate to the movie at that time. I wasn't interested enough to watch it straight through.
This is one I saw in high school, and kind of like you, Ken, I couldn't appreciate it then. It's one of those movies that you really have to be an adult. You have to be, someone that either has a family or a job or, all the stresses of life, which we can all relate to now. But at the time, I couldn't really relate to it, so I really didn't appreciate it. Over the past 15, 20 years that I've seen this movie numerous times, I definitely have appreciated it more.
The only thing I think I appreciated at 16 was the Winnebago. I just thought it was
Yes.
kind of cool to have a Winnebago.
Well, even in my mid-20s, I didn't really appreciate some of the humor. I think it's just a matter of what stage of life you're in.
I think that, and it's also Albert Brooks is kind of, I won't say acquired taste, but he's kind of like Woody Allen
It
in a
is.
sense that teenager is really not gonna, I don't think, gonna get Woody Allen humor or Albert Brooks humor. It's just kind of, I don't know, I don't even know how to
I
even
call it
say
deadpan. Kind of, you're saying like self-deprecating humor.
Yeah.
It is kind of like a deadpan. It's an adult humor, not like an adult like pornography humor, but it is
Right.
it is an adult humor that you're right. I think a teenager really would not find funny. You have to appreciate an Albert Brooks. You have to appreciate a Woody Allen. If you don't like Woody Allen's humor, you don't. If you don't like Albert Brooks, you don't. It is an acquired taste.
Yeah. I mean, and there's some circumstantial humor here too, as well that you really can't appreciate until you've reached that stage of life where you have the house and everything like that.
You're going for that job promotion or all the little nuances that bug you every day. I thought this movie kind of started out interesting. I would say I really didn't understand how it started out. I understand that they're buying a house, they're moving, and all the boxes are there. But you had that Larry King radio show that was just playing for like 5 minutes, and they're just kind of panning through the house, and you're listening to the show. It was kind of a little bit slow at first.
Yeah, but I would say I was really interested in the radio show because
Oh, sure,
they're talking
exactly.
they're talking about movies. But before
Yeah.
we get into that, why don't we talk about the plot?
That's a good observation. Tell us about the plot.
David and Linda Howard live in Los Angeles, California. David works in the advertising agency and Linda for a department store. David is asked to transfer to the firm's New York office instead of getting the expected promotion. David angrily insults his boss and gets fired. David convinces his wife to quit her job as well and seek a new adventure. The Howards decide to sell their house, liquidate their assets, drop out of society, like Easy Rider, and travel the country in a Winnebago. They leave LA with $100,000, but their plans change drastically when Linda loses all their savings playing roulette at the Desert Inn Casino in Las Vegas, where David desperately, and I mean desperately, unsuccessfully, persuades a casino manager to give their money back as a publicity gimmick. And it was a total failure. With nowhere to go, the couple quarrels at Hoover Dam, eventually arriving in the small town Safford, Arizona. David unsuccessfully applies for a delivery job at a local pharmacy and resorts to an employment agency. After a counselor obnoxiously reminds him that he was fired from his high-paying job in advertising, David accepts the best position available, as a crossing guard, taunted by the local schoolchildren. Linda, meanwhile, finds employment as the assistant manager at a local hot dog shop, working under a person half her age.
Dude, it's Der Wiener Schnitzel.
Wiener Schnitzer.
Der Wiener Schnitzel.
Der Wiener Schnitzer.
They're all over the West.
Or are they?
Yeah.
But only a few days after beginning their pursuit of their dream of dropping out of society, David and Linda are living in a trailer park, nearly broke, and working dead-end jobs. They decide that it is better to return to their old lifestyles as soon as possible. They point their Winnebago towards New York, where David begs for his old job back, and an end card reveals he is rehired with 31% less pay, but better benefits.
I love
The
it.
end.
Well, let's talk about the movie. Where you guys want to kick it off at?
Well, we were talking about the radio program earlier. I think it's really weird because how slowly it pans to go to the bedroom, but it stops. You don't know what's going on.
Right.
I'm interested in hearing Rex Reed talk because he is describing how he watches movies, and then a lady comes on and talks about, are we going to see movies with less sex in it? The reason why that might be even at the beginning of this movie is this movie is pretty clean. Outside of some swear words, I'm not sure why it got a rated R rating.
The one F word.
It's
Didn't he
crazy.
say it twice?
Well, he said it multiple times during that meeting.
Yeah.
There was one F word that was in reference to having actual sex, and that's the one that caused him to get the R rating. Legitimately ridiculous.
It is.
It
It
is.
is crazy.
Well, this is
Especially
before
by
PG-13.
today's standards.
Yeah, well, this is before PG-13. We have either a PG or a rated R movie. we have to decide which way to go in 1984, 1985. So I understand why they went there. The radio show does prepare us for the fact that this is a pretty clean movie, that there's not any sex in it, and this is kind of like maybe a little bit of a throwback film to what the lady's describing. So I kind of like it, but then we just weirdly go into the bedroom, and then we have that little husband and wife quarrel about the house being sold and all that good stuff.
He's not regretting, but he's second-guessing everything.
He's a neurotic.
He's a neurotic. Yes, clearly he is neurotic.
Every single movie Albert Brooks is in is the same character.
Mm-hmm.
So the other two movies we're going to watch, Broadcast News and Defending Your Life, both of them surround a job. With Broadcast News, he's not getting the job that he always wanted. And then at the beginning of Defending Your Life, it's about a job he took for less money, even though he was going to stand pat about not taking anything less than he deserved. It's always kind of surrounding he's not good enough to get the job that he really wants, which is kind
Albert
of interesting.
Brooks is really good at driving home the realism of life. Kind of like the everyday Joe, the family, job, marriage, bills, just everything. And I like that. It's not like he's doing highbrow comedy. He's not doing over-the-top comedy. He's not doing slapstick. He's doing stuff that everyone can relate to. And his sarcasm and his wit, his timing is just right on. Probably some of the best timing I've ever seen in a movie.
It's kind of like Jerry Seinfeld before Jerry Seinfeld, as far as, looking at life and making fun out of what life throws at us.
As they would say, completely obvious observations.
So, yeah, exactly. So, we were talking a little bit before about Woody Allen, and I think that when you look at Albert Brooks and the humor, this is the evolution of Woody Allen's humor. And no surprise, Larry David is big time influenced by the Albert Brooks humor and Woody Allen humor. And you can really tell it in his writing on Seinfeld. And then his character in Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's amazing. And so everything that was going through my mind, being reminded watching the first scene of how neurotic he is, it's like Jerry Seinfeld's character from Seinfeld met George Costanza and they were morphed into one character. You have to like that particular style. If you don't, you're not going to get the movie.
This is a movie that is not slapstick. This is a movie that is very adult, coming right at you, timing, sarcastic, dry pan humor, which I love. His brother, Bob Einstein, who is very similar, we all know him as Super Dave Osborne, the late Bob Einstein. His humor was similar to his brother's. Not completely the same. Bob Einstein had that wit about him where he was sarcastic and never smiled, and it was just hysterical, the sarcasm that he would do, especially with him and John Byner together pairing. I see a little bit of that in this movie with Albert Brooks' character and his wife and the people he interacts with throughout the movie. You know, when he's getting the hotel room. I love that scene. Obviously, when he's talking with the casino manager, I mean, that's classic. His interactions in this movie with everyone he interacts with is just sarcastically funny, and how he ends it in all the conversations are just the best.
It's relatable humor.
Very relatable. Good way of putting it, yeah.
I think that's how we look at it, because we see him with his wife when she gambles all the money away and how mad he gets. And we could see us being like that to our significant others. And then we could see him trying to talk his way out of it with the casino manager and not getting anywhere, and just knowing that is not going to work out. You just sit there and be like, yeah, you're going to try, but we know what the end results are going to be. It's just not going to work out in your favor. And I think that's what we like about Albert Brooks, is he's relatable. He might be a little bit over the top, and he might be a little bit obnoxious a little bit for some. But in general, though, everybody should be able, at one point in this movie, be able to relate to the character.
I don't think he's obnoxious or over the top in this movie. Why would you say that?
I'll argue this. There are times that he is a little bit obnoxious. At the very beginning, when they're in bed, when he just can't let things go, that wears on me a little bit. But also, too, don't sell sarcasm short. Sarcasm is highbrow humor as well. And it's a thinking man's humor. At the very beginning, because like Ken said, I agree, there are moments throughout here where it's just like, it's a little much.
I mean, like
character.
when he's talking about, I'm going to go sleep in the car, I'm going to go guard the car. He just keeps on going for no particular reason. Based on the argument that they were having, that's where I can't relate. I mean, if it was a real situation where it was a real fight, then I can understand I'm going to go out to the car. But his character can just be a little bit much at times. We also need that later on, especially when she messes up. We need him to be a little bit much, because that's when it's funny. In the bedroom scene, it's not funny. First of all, we don't know much about them. We're thrown right into that argument right at the beginning. And that could put some people off right at the bat, because we don't slowly get into the character development of that. It's right there in our faces.
Well, it's a manufactured argument. She's asleep. He created this argument out of whole cloth. He just made an argument. I've known people like that. They're a lot to handle. But yeah, throughout the movie, he's funny.
So I do agree with you. At the beginning of the movie, it doesn't really play well. I do like the Rex Reed, and I like the radio show, but you're not set up to find out what we're looking at. You're like, okay, this is a little slow. Okay, now they're arguing in bed. We know nothing about them. What are they arguing about? Fine. I think it really picks up when he's entering the office, talking to Hans, which is himself, obviously, about the car, which is awesome.
Nobody knew that for like 30 years.
Yeah, no one. No, that was just recently found. But you can hear it, but I know it's like...
Once I heard it, I can hear it.
Yeah.
And it's a nice little accent. I like that.
Oh, it's awesome. I love the conversation he has with him. I mean, it sets up, it is typical Albert Brooks, just the sarcasm and wit. And now you have him playing a character who is sarcastic and wit. When he gives him the price, he's like, oh, that's a lot of money on a car. And he's like, well...
It's not a car. It's a Mercedes.
He's like, oh, if you don't want to buy it, you can buy a Nova.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Mercedes leather. It's a thick vinyl.
Oh, I love the Mercedes leather.
Yes. It's a thick vinyl. You buy the car, I'll throw a pair of shoes in. I mean, it's the typical, stereotypical salesman. I love it.
I think it's also, if you're watching this now compared to like in the 80s, you don't have the salesman like you did back at that particular time, where there is a bigger negotiation of price on a car. That doesn't really happen as much now. It's really not a talk-down situation, so I can see why people don't understand what he's doing. Maybe they're on the phone. Some of these things are a little dated in that sense, but I still think it's one of the best things there is, he's spending all morning just waiting for this call. He gets in and he says he doesn't want to be bothered, and he's on hold. And I believe his meeting's not till 10, right? So I'm assuming that he's in here
something
at least
like
at 9.
that. Yeah.
So he's on the phone for the first hour of his job, just waiting to find out about his car. That's the other thing about Albert Brooks' characters, as they're just a little bit wanting more. He wants the nice car, he wants the nice house, but at the same time, he's questioning if he should get them. But he wants them. Why? Because he wants to be that level of society. He wants to be looked at as somebody who succeeded. And I think that's almost every character that he portrays. He's wanting recognition. And that's why when he gets into the room and what he thinks he's going to get is the promotion and doesn't get it, he flips out. Because he needs that recognition. He doesn't talk about money. He doesn't talk about the fact that maybe taking this job to go to New York...
The job in New York might pay a lot more.
Pay a lot more because it's, for Ford, right?
Right, and Ford.
The Ford account, yes.
The Ford account, which is a big account, which might give him a lot of
He wants the
money.
Title.
And he was creative director, so it would be a likely fit for him, but he wants the senior vice president role. He wants that recognition, like you said. The bigger house, the nicer car, and the recognition is obviously the money will come with that position, but he wants that title. The title is very important to him. And that other guy who he gave it to just completely loses it too. That's just
the guy that gave it to was somebody else in the company, and I think
less experience and less time.
Was
in the company.
He the guy though that when they were at the party toasting him?
I don't
the guy
know.
who was toasting him that guy?
I don't think so.
No, I heard somebody say that they thought that it was the same guy toasting him. He liked him, but then he was like telling how he hopes he crashes
his boat, his Catalina Island boat.
Catalina Island, yeah.
Basically, has like a Gilligan's Island type of thing happen to him and stuff like that. And she's like, "I thought you liked him," and I'm like, "It doesn't matter if I liked him."
I do. You're right.
Yeah, I think his desire for recognition. I think that's something that we all appreciate. Want to be recognized for a good job, get that pat on the back, get that title. For some of us, that does mean a little bit more than the money. Not for me. I would rather have the money than the title. 'Cause
Yeah, I'd
when,
rather
you
have
know,
the money.
I'm going
Yeah.
for the money.
That's probably my favorite scene. Is probably him talking to his boss. Just him going off on that poor guy from New York. He's just there, and he's a nice guy. He tells
He's
him how
a
much
happy
he
guy,
likes. He likes his stuff, and he's talking about New York, New York. Like, shut up! I hate that song. And
Yeah.
you feel bad for him, and then of course at the end of the movie we see him again, and he's like chasing him because he's like trying to make up
Yeah.
with him, and he's like, "Leave me alone." But
Isn't it Brad? Isn't Brad?
Brad.
But it doesn't make any sense because if I'm in there and I'm being told that somebody else is going to get the position, maybe this is an 80s thing. I don't know. Because I would say, okay, if you're giving me this, what does that mean to me? But he doesn't go there at all. There's no discussion about money or where this can lead to if they do a great job on it. There's just no discussion at all because he's got his heart set on just one thing, and that's that title. Because he
And he doesn't want to move to New York either.
and he even says if he could do the same job with the title. It's almost like he doesn't know what the title means. Creative, we said he was
Creative director.
right, and he's trying to go for vice president, right?
Senior vice president.
Senior vice president.
SVP, baby. SVP.
So I would imagine that's a totally different job than
Sure.
what he's doing right now. But he's trying to say that he could do that job as senior vice president, and that's not really the case.
Well, it's not. It's like when he's trying to sell Gary Marshall. You know, Desert Inn has heart. He's trying to sell his way into that position, saying whatever he can. He says, "Just give me the position. I've earned it. I've been here for 8 years. I've earned it." So he'll say whatever he has to. He'll do whatever he has to for that position. You know, it's the mid '80s. Mid '80s was very big in status. Like Roger Ebert said, what do you call it? A yuppie comedy?
Yeah.
Is it a yuppie comedy? It's debatable, but I can see where someone would say that.
I will say this, though. As neurotic as he was to start the movie out, he really takes losing his job and everything kind of in stride.
Yes, he does.
I vacillate between whether or not he takes it in stride or if that puts him on tilt.
He has like a nervous breakdown, kind of.
Yeah, and that's what leads him to make the completely insane decision to back out of the escrow and cash in everything and buy a Winnebago.
Well, when he goes to visit his wife and tries to convince her to quit his job and, let's make love, let's do this, quit your job now. This is the complete opposite of who this person is.
Yeah.
Everything he does is the complete opposite. He's not David Howard at this point. He's some other person.
What I would have liked to seen is the car ride between his job to her job, because I could see his mind just going all over the place. And then he hits on the idea that this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to him. Because when he's leaving, he's mad. He's saying, don't go to lunch with this guy. He is upset. But by the time he gets to her, he has a revelation.
Manic.
Yeah, he's got this revelation that all of a sudden, this is the best thing that's ever happened to him. I would have liked to seen a little bit of that transformation.
Like the car ride over?
Just the car ride over, just watching him.
Because he'd be talking to
Turn.
himself the whole time in the car.
Oh,
Yes,
definitely.
because he's that kind of person. This is an hour and a half movie. We can add an extra 3 to 5 minutes for that
could.
to happen.
Yeah.
We could. Very easily should have, yes.
I think that would have gone a long way. But I do really enjoy this portion of the movie. I do like the fact that he is a little manic there when he gets to her, and he's like, let's have sex in here, and let's quit our jobs and let's do all this. He's just all over the place. He's got so much energy. But I would have liked to seen a little bit more of a build up to get there. It's just going from one extreme to the other without anything in between. It could have helped the movie a little bit more.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I have this question. Is what he's asking his wife, is it selfish of him to ask her to quit her job and to go on
It's a spur
this?
of the moment thing, because when they were in bed early on in the movie, didn't she accuse him of being like normal or complacent or dull or something like that? And this is the complete opposite.
And it's not like she likes her job anyway. She complained about
goodness.
it before
Yeah.
he came. She had that talk with her friend in the office and said that she doesn't care about anything. She doesn't like anything. And I almost think she didn't name her husband, but I believe that she doesn't care for him at this moment either. But he doesn't know this. So I think in a sense, you're right, Ted. It might be a little bit unfair for him to pressure her like this. But I don't understand her job. I think she's like a human resource person.
She is. So
Yeah,
in the
hired to find
80s,
people.
things weren't called human resources. It was called personnel.
Yeah.
Right.
Same thing. She's the head of personnel. She's the head of HR in this small little department store.
I think if we knew a little bit more about her job, because we know he's been there for 8 years, if she's dedicated herself to this job for a long period of time, then I think that's selfish. But if I think it's just something that is just a second income for them, then it doesn't come off as being as selfish. But at the end of the day, it's what she wants anyway. She wants to get out just as much as he did.
And the great thing about that is when it says, go home, I'll meet you at home, and they go back home and they're looking at the houses in the magazines, looking at what they can buy. I love it when he ran the numbers on, selling the house, losing the money in escrow, selling the cars, liquidating everything. This is what we got. You see her eyes just light. She's buying into it. And then he throws out the Winnebago. You would think she'd be like, I'm not living in a Winnebago. But she's on board, man. She's like, yeah.
You get the feeling that she is, but something happens and that something puts her on tilt. And that's where we get to Las Vegas.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, because they pull in there and she wants a hotel.
Right.
And he's like, why? We got the motorhome. But I think she was missing the bed, the bedroom.
Yeah. Something, I don't know if it's the leaving of Los Angeles or what exactly, but something puts her on tilt, and he does not catch the warning signs that this could have a crisis for her as well. And that's what leads to, in my opinion, the funniest part of the movie.
I like the room they get. The room is very funny.
The junior suite.
The junior
Oh my
suite, yeah.
God.
If Liberace had kids, this is where they would live.
One of my favorite scenes is when he's trying to bribe the guy at the, he's like, I don't do this very well,
That's a lot of money for 1984, 1985. I mean,
1985 bribe, $100.
That's like $350.
That's big money to bribe someone for that.
You only bribe $20 to go to Vegas right now just to upgrade your room. I mean, this guy's going. But the thing is, she's pushing him.
Yes, she is.
The upgrade.
Yeah.
It's not like he's trying to do this, to get the upgrade. Oh, they don't have it. We need to leave.
Right.
Offer him money. He offers him money, and then offer him more money.
Right.
And it's like, I think that might also help with the being on tilt thing, is because she's not getting what she wants. This is the weird thing about it, because we see her as this kind of closed up kind of person at the beginning of the movie, but now she wants not only the bridal suite, she wants to bathe together and watch porno movies together.
Yeah.
And it's just really nuts.
It's like her reaction is delayed. He has his reaction and comes into her office and is completely off type. He's on tilt right there.
Yeah.
But then he comes back to Earth, and they kind of convince each other that this is okay. And then she goes on tilt, and he doesn't catch the fact that she's having a crisis, that this is not okay for her right now, and she's having to adapt to the situation. Of course, her response to the situation is to lose $140,000.
22. Movies like this, I love movies where you kind of see the evolution of Las Vegas. Ken, obviously you can attest to this.
Yes.
You've recently been there.
Yeah.
You see your Ocean's 11, your 19 late 50s, early 60s Vegas. The TV show Vegas, if you guys remember that. You kind of got your 70s Vegas. This, you're looking at the 80s Vegas, and you look back at it, and you're like, wow. It's not even a fraction of a sliver of what it is today. Yeah. It's so crazy.
I'm sitting there trying to point out what I noticed from my last thing, because there are some things there. There are some casinos in downtown Vegas that are still around. But I want to say something about this. Now, he might have been on tilt at the beginning of this movie. When he's in that bed, freaking out already and waking her up, he might already be on tilt because of this job. Because there's a part of him that doesn't believe. Tilt. Yeah, because there's a part of him that doesn't believe he's going to get it. There's a part of him that is trying to sell himself. All these things that he's doing right now, he's worried because he's afraid that if he doesn't get this job, then all these other things don't really matter. I think his tilt is longer, and it starts earlier in the film. Her Tilda's just a little bit on the weird side because of how all of a sudden she just gambles all the way the money. Is that why initially she wanted to be in Vegas?
No.
Did she want to gamble right off the
No,
bat? She
not at
said
all.
that she gambled once before.
Right.
What happened once before?
That's
I'm
true.
curious.
Right.
I am curious to see what happened once before because they've known each other since they were 19 years old.
You know,
they talked about that.
You make
earlier.
a good point. That might be why she wanted to get the room, to get the into the hotel, to get into the casino. Because initially they were just going to get married, stay overnight in the camper, and then leave. But she was pushing to get that hotel room because if you're in the hotel, you're in the casino. So she might have got a little bit of gambling fever there. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm really curious to find out what happened that first time around. They've
I
known each other
guarantee you
for a
she
very
didn't
long
lose
time.
$140,000.
Yeah.
No, but maybe something bad happened before, or maybe something good. Why 22? I'd like to know what 22
Well,
represents.
she put money down once because she tells him, I was up $100,000.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
She was up big time. And
Right.
then
Down.
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 And
Gary
then,
Marshall is the best in this movie. He probably is one of my favorite characters.
well, she won on 22, and that's what she kept going with, which is just insanity. I mean,
Right.
one, playing roulette anyway is you go up to the table knowing you're probably going to lose money. The odds couldn't be any worse in your favor.
She just lost it. I mean, plain and simple.
And
she just lost
got
it.
she got the bug. She
Yep.
won. She won big, and then
Then won $35.
Yeah.
but it makes me wonder though, why didn't he wake up when she keeps coming in and out of the room? She says she came back to the room to get the money.
Right.
Is he that good of a sleeper that he's just
Don't forget, he's been driving a lot in that Winnebago.
Yeah.
And that could take a lot out of you. So he was probably in deep sleep. And they may have had sex and they may have, done some things before she went down. Because she went down around 2 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, 6:30 by this time frame. So she's been gambling for a little bit right there.
You think
So
they had sex in Liberace's children's beds?
I think,
Yeah.
you look at how the beds are kind of like
Right.
mushed together a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm curious how she got all these traveler's checks and everything like that cashed.
Oh, they'll
mean,
find a way.
I'm sure they would, but I mean,
Oh, they'll find a way.
There's a reference you don't hear much. Traveler's checks.
You never hear that
Yes.
anymore.
Yeah.
and the traveler checks were the nest egg.
Right.
That's
were
the
right.
core
they
of the
made
nest
you-
egg.
Yes.
But it's
You're,
also
you're not allowed to use either side. You're not allowed to say nest or egg.
Right.
You just
Yes.
if you could point, but you can't say. It is kind of weird. But I do like the fact that even once she's done gambling, she's not done out of her manic phase.
Because she wants to play Keno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like-
Don't you dare touch those cards! Or I'll kill you.
Yes.
You touch that Keno card, I'll kill you. I swear I'll kill you.
Yes.
But her face, though, at the roulette table and her face at the breakfast table, it's almost the same still.
It is.
I mean,
it is the same.
Oh,
She's riding high.
She's
Yeah.
in the throes of the
Yeah.
gambler's high.
I like that they kept that going and that she didn't just snap out of it right away, that it took time for her to kind of realize. And she even says that later on when they're in the Winnebago, she finally realized what happened. I do appreciate that. And then, of course, he goes up and talks to Gary Marshall and tries to sell him on give us our money back. And people will think that you're a great casino. And
Desert Inn has heart.
The desert
Yeah.
Inn has heart.
Has heart. Yes.
I love the Santa
It's-
Claus part. That was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Santa-
Santa Claus.
Gary Marshall's
Schmucks go
like,
see Wayne Newton. Schmuck? I'm a schmuck? I like Wayne Newton.
I like it when he says that Gimbals and Macy's, they had Santa Claus. We don't have Santa Claus.
Right,
So,
right.
That's the difference.
One of the things that I read about that scene, and this is something that is some next level, trying to get the right reaction. So I guess they kept running this scene. And Gary Marshall, who's a great director in his own right, didn't understand why Albert Brooks was running the scene over and over again. And the more he kept running the scene, the more annoyed Gary Marshall got.
Or agitated, yeah.
When he saw the daily cuts of the scene, he goes, now I get it. Because the more annoyed he got, the funnier it gets, because you feel like When is Gary Marshall just going to kick this doofus out of his office?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Interesting thing about the Albert Brooks direction style, he doesn't say cut. He lets the film roll, and they will start wherever Albert Brooks wants to start, whatever line he wants to start on. So he doesn't say cut at any particular time. He just lets the film roll, and then he lets it edit it in, post-production. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing because it kept everybody on their toes. You had to really know your lines for this movie because of Albert Brooks basically said, okay, I'm going to take it up from this part, boom. But you don't get to prepare for it because the film is running. You don't say cut and take a break. You just keep on going. And I guess this is something he's done for years.
Well, if you have smart comedy people, which the lady who played his wife, Haggerty, she's a comedian as well.
Airplane.
So, see, right. If you have people, and
Same
Gary
type
Marshall's
of character,
funny.
too, if you think about it.
Right, and Gary Marshall's a funny guy, too.
Oh, he's hysterical.
So when you have these people, what that does is if you just let it run, and let's say you don't know the line, somebody might improv something that might be funnier than the line. And that's actually a really smart way to do that if you're dealing with the right people. It's not for everybody. But if you're dealing with people that have the same high-level thinking, sometimes you never know. What you might end up with might be better than what's written down.
When he's arguing for the money, he wants it all back. He's not asking for a little bit back.
No.
He's an all-or-nothing kind of guy.
He thinks that he can get it all.
They did comp his meal and rooms.
Oh, that was going to be automatic no matter what.
I love that.
It's like, can we get comp for the $100 that I gave the guy for
Right.
best suite? I'm going to get the junior suite. And that bellboy, man.
Oh,
Awful.
my God.
It's like, I don't know.
You can tell he's annoyed by him as well. But Gary Marshall is just absolutely wonderful here. And it makes you wonder, he's grasping at straws trying to get this money back. Does
He's
he really?
changing the pitch, too.
Right.
He's feeling the room. He's changing the pitch.
He knows that there's no way he can get the money. He has to know this.
No, he doesn't. He
Not at that point. He thinks he can sell it.
He thinks he can
get
sell
the money
it.
back.
He's an ad guy.
He tells his wife before he leaves, he says, I think I know a way to get that money back. I think it's interesting when he walks in and they go up to his office and he tells them about his reputation.
Who he is, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And who he is, and Gary Marshall just comes back and like, what did you hear? It was like it was. Like
yeah. What'd you hear
been
about
talking
me?
to?
Yeah,
So,
right.
It's like, wait a second, what does he do? I mean, has he had some people taken care of? I mean, I'm kind of curious about Gary Marshall's character.
Well, casino man, a guy who runs a casino usually is going to have a mixed reputation at best.
Well, it's 80s, so you're still at the end of the mob era when it comes to casinos.
Steve Wynn is starting at this point to buy up the casinos. Yeah. No, it's funny.
I wish I would have seen a little bit more like him actually being
She's
escorted out of his
down.
office or something, because some of the problems I have with this movie is how certain scenes end, and I'm not sure I'm crazy about how this scene ends with Gary Marshall. I think he says we're done here, and then all of a sudden we're back in the Winnebago. I would have liked the scene a little bit more.
The thing generally is we're looking at things to cut out of movies, and this one we're looking at things to add. We got time.
We do.
I could go 2 hours on this, no problem.
I actually kind of like how they just cuts to the Winnebago, because we get to the Winnebago and she's come down from whatever the gambler's high that she was on, and she's trying to smooth things over. This is one of my favorite parts for Albert Brooks. He's seething underneath, and you're like her. You want him to just explode.
Yeah.
And he
Get it out, right.
It's eating him up inside to just remain quiet.
They get to Hoover Dam, and then he does go off on her, and then how she reacts back is that this marriage is over and gets into a car with somebody else. I just don't like her too much. Her character is just, it's all over the place. She wants him to, his anger out. He lets his anger out on her. He gives it to her. She can't take it, and then she runs away and jumps in the car with another guy.
It was public. Her ego was hurt.
She wanted him to come back and and say those things to her inside the...
Right.
It actually was inside. At first it was public. Then she brought him back into the Winnebago, and he went off. And that's when he started saying stuff like, you don't get to say nest or egg and things of that nature. But she walks out of the Winnebago.
I love that.
Yeah,
And
she loses it. Yeah.
And she loses it even earlier. Before they go in the Winnebago, she's hungry and wants a snack. She demands half the money.
And that set him off. He's like, you take your half of the 800, I'll take mine. He's like, half? And that set him off.
That would set me off too.
Yeah.
That was probably the tipping point right there. You're going
Right.
to tell me that you just lost $100,000 and you want
$140,000.
$140,000 and you want half of what's
Right.
left
Right.
because you think you're entitled to it. That's just crazy. Her reactions to him are kind of unreasonable. At first, it seems like she understands. I did something stupid. You need to get it off your chest because I could see it's building. But once he lets go, she just jumps in with some guy that I guess he's wanted for whatever reason.
Yes.
I guess those two guys were dead when...
Yeah.
She does ask him to have the emotional outburst. The way he does it is, because I think it's hilarious, obviously. But looking at it from her point of view, he does kind of belittle her a little bit and talk down to her. And that could hurt her feelings. I don't think she was really serious about ending the marriage. I think she just did that as a way to get back at him. I think she knew down deep that he was going to follow them.
Yeah, but even when he gets there and he confronts her and, the guy there, he basically says, I'm going to give you to count to 3. She doesn't let it go. She lets him go to count to 3. He lets that guy take her husband outside and allows him to get hit. By that time, she should have let it go. She should have realized, okay, well, I've taken it too far. It wasn't until he actually gets hurt and she fears for his life. I think her character is just a little too much of a roller coaster ride for me. I like Julie Haggerty. I think she is funny. And there are parts in this movie where I really enjoy her. After this, I think it kind of levels out finally, and then we go from there. I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more added to this film. I feel like it's too short for an hour and 30 minutes. I'm not asking for a ton of background, but we're kind of rushed into the fact that she doesn't like her life. And why doesn't she like her life? Maybe some things that we see at work. Maybe she deals with a boss and, her boss is mean. We only get that like a minute with her friend in the office. I feel like we just come in at a weird time in the movie, because we talked about that at the beginning of the movie, right in the bedroom. We kind of come into it at a weird time. And I think that a little bit more time with them could make me like them a little bit more. Not that I hate them. I don't hate them at all. But I think her character is a little bit uneven at first. And that's what it's designed to be. But I don't know. I probably would have let her just gone off with that guy, and then I would have sold the Winnebago and started my life over again. That's kind of hard to come back when your wife loses that much money.
It's a lot. Both characters ask a lot of each other. I think that there's a lot that they give and take quite a bit. I think it's funny that she just gets into the car. Instead of having this high-speed chase, the one car goes up the thing and then one follows. Pretty funny that way. And
I like it when he says, next time you get in a car with someone, try like an older lady.
Of course.
And then they leave the diner, and then I guess they're speeding.
Yeah, apparently the Winnebago does 90 miles an hour or something. That scene, I thought it was a little, I don't know, was it really needed? But
no.
I think they were setting it up to show how, as a team, they're now working together. Like the wife bailed them out by mentioning Easy Rider to the officer, and the officer ripped up the ticket, and what did he say? You're up $140 an hour or something.
Right. I like that line.
Yeah.
I like that line.
He's lighthearted about it now.
But the interaction with the cop was just kind of weird. I mean,
it was.
First, I mean, the cop is being a real by-the-book kind of guy.
He's a dick,
He's being what he needs to be in that situation. But then to just all of a sudden totally cave in, and it wasn't like there was much on Easy Rider, and it wasn't like it was like a long conversation, and they had a long time to bond over this. This is like a 30-second conversation that all of a sudden I'm going to rip up your ticket.
But the cop doesn't like Easy Rider. He likes the end of Easy Rider.
Well, it's what made him get a motorcycle and made him want to be a cop.
He likes it when they get killed.
When they get killed, yeah.
You have to know Easy Rider to understand that joke.
Yeah.
And then the Terminator reference didn't make any sense either. I mean, what the heck?
No,
you look like him. You look like the Terminator. What?
No, he doesn't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's
No, he looks like the cop, doesn't he?
Well,
at that
Terminator
time-
2 wasn't out yet.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
right. T2 was 80. You're right.
Yeah.
So it's the 84 one.
You know,
He doesn't look like the Terminator. You're right.
No.
it's a very
awkward.
interesting. It's a very interesting interaction. But you're right, Eric. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's to show that they're working together as a team again, and they're back on the same page. At
Right.
least.
I don't know. I think I still would be steaming. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot.
$800 to your name, right? And you're driving this massive Winnebago around. There's only so far you can
She's
go.
like,
Exactly.
let's go to Canada.
Canada.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we can't make it to Canada.
Yeah,
we got,
ain't
we
gonna
got New Mexico, Arizona.
Arizona, that's right.
Pick your
Yeah.
poison.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I like it though when they pulled into the motor home place or what do they call those?
It was a mobile home park.
Mobile home park. The older people was like, it's nice to have
Young people here. Yeah.
But I think after then, it just kind of, I don't want to say it flatlines. I don't know. I think it loses some of its humor going forward. I mean, the scene with the guy,
At the employment agency.
the employment agency, yeah, that's okay. Though that guy is really obnoxious about the $100,000 thing.
But $100,000, they've never seen that kind of money before.
No.
And he's talking about it like it's nothing. It's
Nothing,
like,
right.
Yeah,
Right.
like it's common. It's like, hey, it's $100,000.
I get it, but I just feel like it
Couldn't
loses...
change your life on $100,000,
Right. I mean, there's something to say about that. It's saying that if happiness is what you make out of things, it's not
Sure.
necessarily the money. But at the end of the day, they miss the money. Later on, we see him being a crossing guard, and you got that guy that comes for the directions. He's got the Mercedes, and he's smelling it. He's missing it. He's realizing what he
It's
had.
the car he wanted
Yeah,
It's
with the
exact
leather
car.
option.
and he still
Yes.
wants it.
Yeah,
And now
you
he's
bet.
like, what have I done? And I love the boss, her manager, Skippy.
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 That
You
is
can call me
awesome.
Skippy.
You can call me Skippy.
No, that's okay.
And David is just like, what have we done? This guy is your manager? I love it.
I like it that they're on the same page at the end because Skippy's watching the Flintstones, I guess.
Yes, he's watching the
Oh my God,
Flintstones,
yeah.
Yes.
And then they were like discussing what their plans are, and he's like, "Well, my plan's kind of like a backup plan. What's your plan?"
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
my plan is for you to like go kiss some butt and go get your job back. Oh, that's my plan too.
That's my
Right.
plan too. Yeah.
Right.
But I just feel like it loses momentum. It comes into a different movie. I think now all of a sudden, I would have liked to seen a little bit more with him dealing with those kids. Maybe he waits that car to come by while the kids are still doing what they're doing, and it hits one of the kids' bikes. Doesn't hurt him or anything like that, but he gets fired for it or something like that. I just
Fired
wanted-
from the crossing guard. Yeah.
Being fired
the
from a
ultimate low.
Yeah, that's
The
what
ultimate
I.
low.
So Ken is advocating violence against children.
Well, those three kids, maybe so, but
Sure.
But I think it would add a little flavor. Like you just said, Eric, you hit the bottom. He thinks crossing guard is the bottom. Getting fired as a crossing guard is the bottom.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been something interesting. And then her being at that place,
Die Wiener Schnitzel.
The
they
Wiener
didn't know how to
Schnitzel.
use. They didn't know how to use the fryer.
Yes.
And I guess the French fries were still frozen.
They
I mean,
crystallized
were
on the inside still.
And they were
And
still
he's
eating
like,
them.
and you ate them? He's like, well, yeah.
I don't know. The last third of the movie is just kind of, I don't know, rushed.
I love the scene with Skippy where he's like, this is the guy who had to sleep on it? His ego is just shot. At that point, after he sees the guy in the Mercedes, he comes home and he sees Skippy. He's like, what the hell have we done? We have hit rock bottom.
Wait, I love the fact that Skippy wants to tell him what she did.
Yes.
And she's like, no,
don't.
he's tired, we can wait another. Because
Right.
he knows that this is going to set him off.
This-
Right.
He's like, no, I want to hear what Skippy has to say.
Yes, Skippy.
It's the way he says it too.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to hear what Skippy has
Skippy
to
has
say.
to say, yes.
But we're kind of rushed through all this. I would have liked some interaction with maybe some people in the motor park. We see him like looking out the window, and one guy can't hear, and
Yeah.
the other guy, what is it? Does he have trouble speaking or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
I would have liked to seen a little bit more interaction there. Just more stuff added on to realize how low they are at. Because this movie just abruptly ends. They take this route, which I don't know what route you would take to go to New York, but they take the scenic route.
I love the scenes of them driving through the cities and the small towns with New York in the background. I think that is just great 3 or 4 minutes of the movie.
Would you take that route, though? You're a guy who likes to drive. So from Arizona, you're going to go through Georgia and go up.
Could you're taking the Atlantic route? It's possible.
Yeah, and also you have to remember this is, what is this, 1984? 1985. A lot of things are quite a bit different now. I would have thought that they would have went for the common denominator, which would have been to take Route 66.
Right, that's what I was going to say, yeah.
Oh, that would have taken them forever to get there.
I mean, they don't go in a direct line from Arizona to New York, although that it's cross country. Actually, it would have been easier for them on $800 to get to Canada than what they end up doing.
How about them pulling into New York and finding a parking space right in front of a building?
We've talked about the whole parking space thing. That
or a
miraculously,
Winnebago, in Manhattan.
And you just happen to see Brad right there when he walks out.
Right.
How convenient. But then it ends. It's just, and I'm like, wait a second here.
You want a Lost in America too? Lost in Manhattan?
I just felt like the last 15 minutes of the movie was just gone.
It flew by.
It just flew by. When that movie ended the first time that I watched it through, I was like, this can't be the whole movie. I must have fell asleep or something because I can't believe that this movie's over. It was fast. And it's funny because I think there are scenes that kind of drag, but for an hour and a half, I thought it was a fast hour and a half.
Yeah, no, it didn't drag. I mean, a few scenes here and there, but overall, this thing kept my attention the whole way.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, maybe a fun scene with Brad, not seeing him outside, maybe him going up into the building.
Into his office.
And looking in his office and finding him there,
And then there's Brad, and Brad's freaking out in the office, and then you could have played off with that, but I don't care for how it ended.
I think you could have easily added another 20 minutes to this movie.
Yes.
No problem.
I could see that. The ending is what it is. I like the scenes too, Eric, with them driving with New York behind it.
Especially since he hated that song.
So. Yes. And hates New York. So.
Yeah. It is a little bit uneven. I will agree with Ken. It doesn't have the same bite to it. When he's starting to get into the acceptance stage of his grief over losing all the money and everything, he's not quite as funny as what he was for the sandwich when he realizes how far they've fallen. He becomes funny again. Ultimately, it's a tight 1 hour and 30 minutes. Nothing is really wasted, and it keeps your attention. There are things that I think could have been added to add some color to it.
I think I needed more situations in Arizona because that is where the lowest of the low. I think that we could use that because the last
what I would have liked when you're talking about Arizona is I would have liked to seen how she got the job at Der Wiener Schnitzel.
Yeah, maybe show how her applying for the job and all that good stuff.
Exactly.
We saw his route.
First application. Did she go to other places? Her interaction with Skippy on the interview. I think that would have been great.
And she was really excited about getting this job initially.
She was. I know.
Like she says, an assistant manager position, and we were like, "Oh, that makes sense." She got the job before he did, and it's a much better job than what he got. What was a crossing guard, but it wasn't. But she played it off like it was like a great thing. And maybe that's because she doesn't want him to get mad. But this, again, is why I have trouble with the last third of the movie, is because I just think there's just so much there that they could have experienced with their neighbors and stuff. They talk about the neighbors a little bit, and they talk about their area a little bit, but they don't show them dealing with anybody in that motor park. I would have liked to have seen that. Because especially with Albert Brooks' humor, it could have been funny. I would have rather had that than had what happened at the job agency. I think that would have played off a little bit better than what we saw at the job agency. Not that the job agency is bad. It's just based on his type of comedy and his type of approach. I think him interacting with his neighbors would have been funnier.
See, I like the scene at the temp agency.
Yeah,
I think that is how small town America is played out. He's big time America, urban and rural. But think about how he presents himself. He's presenting himself like he's actually applying for a job. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, for the last 4 years, I was head creative director at such and such. Have you heard of them? He's applying as he's talking to this guy. And this guy is like, hey, we just handle small and minuscule jobs here. This is not corporate America. He's a simple man. And David is not a simple man. this guy's kind of doesn't understand why this guy walked away from all this money and this job, and there's no way in hell he's going to want to take anything that he's offering. And I think the interaction is funny.
It's at that point that Albert Brooks' character realizes the whole thing was a folly. And I think that's where he really gets it, is when he's in small town America, and they're not small town America. They're big city. They're Los Angeles, New York. It just doesn't quite fit.
So let me ask you guys a question. Let's say they didn't lose the money. They went to the casino, or they went to Vegas. They did what they needed to do. They left, and they got lost in America. How long is the money going to last? Are they just pretty much putting off the inevitable 5 years, 10 years down the road, where now they're flat broke? Did they have any intentions of ever getting jobs while they were lost in America?
I think they're done within 6 months to a year, to be perfectly honest with you.
You think they'll go through 140 grand in that amount of time?
I think they would have the money. I think the lifestyle would...
The marriage would kill them.
I think the lifestyle, I don't think they are built for the lifestyle that they thought they were going to have. They would realize how more difficult it actually was to do what they were trying to do. What happens if somebody broke a leg, or some of that nest egg starts to go away? You know, the stressors come along, and then they
heart attack,
because
something.
Here's the thing that he does throughout the time after he leaves. He shows his credentials where he's worked before. He brings it up in Vegas. He brings it up here in Arizona. Why does he do that? Because he doesn't trust his plan. Well, granted, the plan is already busted already. I think he's always had it in the back of his mind. If something were to happen, he could fall on the credentials of what he used to do. I really think that this isn't going to last. Because if he really wanted to make this work, he could have made it work. You know what? Get up and go to a different location if this is the location that's not going to benefit you. I just think for them, they really did like the life that they had.
True.
At the end of the day, this brought them together, though. This did bring them closer together. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more chemistry between the two leads. They're funny together, and their arguments are fun. But as far as like a loving relationship, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more, especially in Arizona. And that builds and builds and builds. And that's why when they go to New York, they can conquer New York together now, because they're one team again. And I think they do it to a certain extent, but I think there could have been more.
Yeah.
And my answer to your question, Eric, is I agree with Ken. Let's round it to $150,000. In 1985, 84, they could have lasted a few years. I think he could have made it work. As far as them, let's say that they still have the money and she doesn't lose it. I think they don't last as long as what Ken thinks. I think they'd only make this a few months.
Couple months, really, and then they just lose it?
Right, because here's the thing. What they find out very quickly is that they are big town people. They're not small town people. To make the kind of sacrifices they were going to make this life work, they're not built that way, and that's not a slam on them at all.
Just reality.
But, right. The moment that guy pulls up in that Mercedes, you know where the movie's going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you see the look on his face. And that's a good acting job, too. I mean, you see the look on his face, how he's longing for that. That would have happened eventually. They would have run into somebody who had a car, or let's say they run into somebody who has a Winnebago, but also has a 6,000 square foot mansion that's doing this. And I've seen this quoted more than once, that they were quote unquote going off the grid. That's not technically what they were doing. They're not the type of people that are built that way. At the beginning of the movie, he's talking about the fact that they didn't get tennis court with their new house.
Yes, exactly.
And now he's going to be satisfied for a lengthy period of time living in a Winnebago.
That's a good point.
And here's the other thing. It goes back to what we said earlier about status. Eventually,
Right.
He's going to want that status. He's going to want to build himself up. He didn't talk about money when he lost the job. He talked about not getting that position. Well, what kind of position does he have right now? He needs to prove himself. I think she would last a whole lot longer than he would under with the money, because eventually he's going to look at self-worth and say that he's not good enough and bail.
Ultimately, I think she's more of the realist of the two of them, and I think you're right. I think she could have made this work, and she could have become more minimalist in her tastes. I think that's very conceivable, but there was no way that he was going to be able to
Survive.
survive.
Yeah,
It's just,
you're right.
I've seen this argument posted on a couple of different articles that I read about the movie that, this is the case of small town versus big town America. And yeah, I guess to a certain extent that's the case. I think it's just a matter of personality type. I didn't grow up in the small town, so to speak, but I found my life and I'm much happier living closer to Chicago than I was in more rural America. I can understand where this guy's coming from. I mean, not to the extent of having the status or anything like that. I'm not obsessed with that. I like the fact living around Chicago, in 45 minutes I can be at a world-class art museum or a world-class science and industry museum, whereas where I grew up, those things are like 2 hours away. I find myself here. That's just me being perfectly honest. So I understand exactly what he's doing, and that's why I stick by what I said. I don't think that he can last, because he's going to have to adapt to an entirely different life. And Ken, you're right too. It's a status thing. He's not going to have the house. He's going to have to live out of a Winnebago. Because Ken, you said you wanted to see him interact with his neighbors more. I think the interaction that he has is exactly what is needed there, because he looks out and he sees that, one, they're elderly people, but he doesn't see himself as those people. He sees these people as he's looking out of his curtains, out of his window shades. He's not necessarily looking down on them, but he knows that he's not one of them.
I think it would have been interesting for him to try to force it, because this is his idea. And I think there's part of me that wants him to say, you know what, I came up with this. I'm going to try to make it work. I'm going to go out there and smooge these neighbors of mine. But then he'll realize that they don't care about him being an ad guy, a creative guy. And that's the other thing that's going to be a problem. He is a creative person. How is he going to be creative in that place and what he does? Right. His gifts are going to be squashed, and it's going to be very hard for him to handle that. I mean, it would be a totally different movie, but you could make a movie like this and take Vegas totally out and have that same type of character just go nuts. He's going to have the same kind of breakdown that his wife had in the Vegas thing.
Okay, so Eric, you need to answer your own question now.
I don't think the money would last. I agree. I don't think they had any early on to get jobs. I think they were just like, we're going to retire early. We're going to drive around the country in the Winnebago, and we're going to get off the grid, if you will. Touch Indians. You guys all made great points, and I agree with you 100%. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, they're just going to lose it. It's too cramped. There's not enough room in that Winnebago. And status is David's number one, if not number two, thing in life. Drive around a Winnebago, let's be honest. Who are the kind of people you meet driving around in Winnebagos? Retirees.
Right, or really, really rich people.
Do you really see rich people driving around in Winnebagos?
Oh, very, very nice Winnebagos, yes. But
yeah.
here's another thing.
But they're not living in them.
PGA Tour pros.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're not living in them exclusively. Like you said, they've got the mansion, they've got other houses.
Right.
These people are living in it, and I think it would eventually just destroy them. Not to mention, 140,000, 150,000 is a good chunk of change in 85. Okay, so what's your medical benefits, right? I know we're reading into it a little bit. Okay, you have no medical. You've quit both your jobs. You have a heart attack. Something happens to you. Winnebagos require maintenance.
Right.
You eat, you drink, you go out. You're in this mundane life now, living in a Winnebago. Hey, let's go. Let's drive up here. Let's go see a show. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. The money keeps dwindling down. I think their mentality breaks down before the money breaks down.
Here's the thing that we don't talk about. So before they even get to Vegas, they're driving the Winnebago and they make the grilled cheese. So I guess it's the best grilled cheese maker, microwave maker that has ever made
it's
a grilled cheese.
It's a microwave with a browner. Welcome to
I guess. Yeah. But they're trying to sell themselves of the idea even before.
Already.
Yes. I've never tasted melted cheese
this
like
good before.
this.
Yeah.
Right. He's trying to make it
Wow.
seem like this is the best decision I am. They're trying to sell themselves on this dream.
Yes.
If you're trying to sell yourself on the dream, then the dream is not real.
And you haven't even left L.A.
This is historic. We're
a
crossing
city
the
limit.
state line.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah, they're just telling this kitchen is amazing. Oh, you know, this is amazing. Oh, this is going to work out great. It wasn't going to work out. And they hadn't even got to Vegas yet, and we already know that it's not going to work out.
He's trying to sell this idea to Gary Marshall. Because we're bold. Everybody else might not be bold,
Right.
but we're bold. We're doing something never done before. He's still trying to convince himself there.
They're just smucks here for Wayne Noonan. So.
Right.
Yes.
The last thing I want to just touch on is they keep bringing up Easy Rider.
Yes,
Uh-oh.
they do.
I don't get where Easy Rider is any way connected to this movie.
I don't either.
I think this yuppie saw Easy Rider and took the wrong
Message.
they took the wrong message from
Yeah,
Easy Rider
yeah.
because he's like, they had a nest egg, they had the cocaine.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Albert Brooks actually says in an interview that he wanted to do an Easy Rider movie that was real. That was what he wanted to do. He wanted to show
well-
the realism of a truly going off the grid and what that would look like and the problems with that. And
In this
that's why he
movie
made-
or in general?
In this movie.
Oh.
That's what Albert Brooks said he was trying to do was Easy Rider with realism,
With a Winnebago
with a Winnebago.
and no
Yeah.
cocaine.
Here again, I think Albert Brooks himself might not have taken the right message from Easy Rider. Yeah, it's
Not related to this movie.
no, it's not. I guess
Maybe we
that-
should do Easy Rider on the podcast one of these days
Yeah, I'm
as a
I'm,
counterpoint to this
I'm-
one.
I'm for it because I like
Yeah.
Easy Rider a lot.
Yeah.
I guess they are the same generation, although Albert Brooks's character would be really pushing the edge of the baby boomer generation, being in his maybe early 30s in 1984, because he'd be about the same age as my parents. He didn't take the right message from Easy Rider.
Maybe
Because
that's the running joke of the movie.
I think it is.
I think it might
That-
be.
They don't understand what they're talking about. Because, like I said, the cop says his favorite part is when they get killed at the very end of the movie, which to me is one of the most disturbing parts of the movie. I
If I
don't
was
know.
that cop, I
It-
would check for cocaine in there.
Yeah,
in their
definitely,
Winnebago.
right? Easy Rider, huh? Okay.
yeah, look for cocaine in the gas tank. If you're going to stretch Easy Rider thin, I guess they have a very 80s Easy Rider with a Winnebago and going to Vegas instead of New Orleans. And
Well, it's a different era. I mean, you are in the era of what trickle-down economics, as they would.
greed is good.
It's
Gordon
great,
Gekko.
yeah.
That's the era that we're in, and I think it's a
The era of free love is over.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the people from the free love period, the hippie movement, they are the ones who become the yuppies. So in a sense, this is almost kind of maybe a sequel, in a sense, because
No,
they're grown up. They're grown. This generation that loved
it's not a
loved
sequel.
Easy Rider as 16, 17-year-olds are now grown up adults.
Yeah,
who-
but those people in Easy Rider, I mean, yeah, they died in the movie, but they would have been dead anyway. Let's be honest. They're not going to amount to the head of creative directorship or
So
whatever
what
it
we
is.
needed to happen was these two characters needed to die at the end to make a complete Easy Rider
Nice.
movie.
No. Nobody
Fiery
needed to
crash
die.
in the Winnebago. Nice.
Yeah, all those old
Somebody
people
shoot-
like poisoning them. So
Somebody shoots him on the streets of Manhattan.
Yeah, I would have seen that one coming. Like, oh,
you know that would have been funny. You know, if he got out of the Winnebago and the first thing that happened is somebody stole his briefcase or stole something from him because he said earlier that. happens
yeah,
at
when you
Vegas
get off
is
the
you
get off the plane or the train or something, to get your luggage
get
stolen.
robbed. Yeah, that's what
That
should
would
have
have been
happened right
perfect.
there.
That's good. I like that. That would have been great.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then that would be kind of a Easy Rider type of thing.
All right. Well, we've spent some good time talking about this movie. It's time now to talk about what our thoughts are of this movie. Ted, tell us your thoughts.
This is an interesting movie to review. This is what I have said when we've covered comedies. Some comedies are for some people, some comedies are not. It's very subjective. I happen to find a lot of what Albert Brooks's character does and says very amusing. It's no shock that I also love Seinfeld. I like Curb Your Enthusiasm and other Woody Allen movies. So I get the humor, and I'm a very sarcastic person. So I completely understand. So the movie falls for me. It hits. I do agree a lot with Ken with some of the critiques where little things here and there added probably would have added some more color to the characters and to the story. It probably would have helped the story a lot. I do agree with Ken as well that the last third of the movie does seem rushed a little bit, and that's unfortunate. It's a very interesting film, and I think it's a very needed film because this is a bridge to some modern comedy. I enjoy the movie. It's an easy hour and a half. I'm never really bored with it. It makes me chuckle. It makes me laugh. Ultimately, it makes me smile because I get the jokes. And it leaves me very well. If you've not seen the movie, I highly recommend that you see the movie. Especially if you do like I said, you like Seinfeld or Curb Your Enthusiasm. So this movie falls right as a solid B for me because I do think it's important and I think it's really funny.
Cool. How about you, Ken?
This one is a tough one for me to grade, mainly for a lot of the things that I said earlier that Ted just mentioned. The last third of the movie being kind of rushed. Some scenes, like the cop scene, just really not being needed. Would have done a little bit more character development. I just needed a little bit more. I like this movie. I do like this movie, so that it's really weird where my grade is going to be here because some movies I might give a certain grade and it sounds like I hate the movie. But then I'll give the same grade to another movie that I like because I believe that there was still more that could have been done here. Albert Brooks is funny. I enjoy Albert Brooks films. I'm looking forward to doing Broadcast News and doing Defending Your Life. Though I like Albert Brooks. He's really good. However, I just feel like when this movie ended, it kind of reminded me of All the President's Men. All of a sudden it ended, and I was like, wait, that's it? We're done? I feel like there's just something missing here. But I love the writing. I love listening to Albert Brooks talk. His lines are funny. They're well written. He is a very good writer / director / actor. He is really good at this. But I just feel like it slightly just missed the mark here. I'm going to go a tad lower than Ted on this grade. I'm giving it a B-.
Interesting. Okay. I will keep mine pretty simple. I agree with everything Ted said, and I agree with everything Ken said. In fact, I like that reference with All the President's Men. That really does sum up what I think about the ending of the movie as well. Now, the thing I don't agree with you on is the rating. This movie is one of my favorites. It is an incredible movie. It is a great hour and a half. It flows like a dream. There's very few things I can say wrong about it. The ending might be the only thing, to be honest with you. All the other nickel and dime criticisms, I can blow them off and I can flow with the movie. This one, for me, is a solid A-. Well, we all like the movie. That's positive.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
Watch it again. I mean, there's other B- movies that I wouldn't watch again, but this is a movie I would watch again.
Might catch some new things as well, too. Ken kind of alluded what the next two movies we're going to be doing are. Of course, that's going to be Broadcast News, starring Albert Brooks again, and, of course, Defending Your Life, also starring Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. So, you can kind of see the trend here. 3 movies starring Albert Brooks. Ted, where can they find us out there?
We can be found on Twitter at hookedon_movies. Whatever platform you're listening to us on, whether it be Apple or Spotify or Good Pods, if you can leave us a rating, 5-star rating, or click subscribe, you'll make sure you get all of the episodes downloaded as soon as they debut. And because the more reviews we get, the more we get seen, and hopefully it'll send us to possibly becoming Rotten Tomatoes certified someday.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Ted. 4-star, not good.
4 stars, okay. I
Okay,
mean,
we don't want
but it's
4s and 3s. We want 5s only.
it's the 5-star reviews that are the ones that they really drive the algorithm.
Got it. All right. Ken, Facebook, what's new and exciting there?
We have a Facebook page. It's Hooked on Movies. Feel free to join us and interact with us. Tell us what you think of these movies. We really want to hear that, and we will interact with you. We will go back and forth with your thoughts on our reviews and what you think of, let's say, this movie right here. And we do encourage you to watch these movies to have a better understanding, because there are sometimes things that we miss as well, and it'll be nice to hear from you and let us know what you saw. Sign up for the Facebook page, Hooked on Movies.
Awesome. All right. That is all the time we have. Thank you for joining us for Lost in America. Next episode, 1987's Broadcast News with Albert Brooks and William Hurt. We're looking forward to that one. And as always, I'm not wearing any pants. Film at 11.
See you at the movies.
See you next time on Hooked on Movies.